Hey guys, what's up? Dingocrikey here with another Transformers figure review. This time we're going to be looking at Transformers Cybertron Deluxe Class Buzzsaw. This figure was originally released in 2005 in the Transformers Cybertron Deluxe Wave 3.5 for the price of $9.99. And this review was suggested by user Rue-500/BigRye. The figure is a heavily repainted and slightly remolded version of Armada Cyclonus, and was one of the, I believe, 6 Armada molds that were repainted or remolded, or both, released in the Transformers Cybertron toy line. So let's get right to it by moving aside his Cyberkey for right now, and taking a closer look at the figure. There you have the front of the helicopter, there's the side, there's the other side, the back, the bottom, and there he is from the top. As far as colors, this guy has a whole crazy array of them. We can see he has this really bright neon yellow kind of as his main color. We also have a whole lot of green right in the front there. Some bits of darker gray throughout. We have more dark gray here, a lighter gray on these details, some purple here on the rotor, on these back fins. We have some white up on these wings, also on the back as well, and then finally we have some red details. So pretty crazy color scheme, not too uncommon in the Transformers Cybertron toy line. It's also worth noting that this was an homage to Transformers Beast Wars Buzzsaw. Now one thing I do want to point out is that the white on these wings here may look to be a dull color. I don't believe that's the way the white should actually look. I believe that's just because this figure was probably on display a lot when I was younger and sat out in the sun. The white on the back of his head is probably closer to how all of the white should look on the figure. So let's take a quick look at what parts of the figure are remolded from the original helicopter mode. As you can see, the front there is remolded. There's also some additional Cyberkey ports on the sides of the cannons. Give you guys a look at anything else. There are a few more things, but I believe those will be much more evident in robot mode, so we'll save it for then. Other than that, for significant details, we can see this guy does have a crazy amount of just little details. Not all of them are painted, but you can see like all throughout he has these little cracks, nail details, stuff like this, sort of like the internals of the vehicle. We can also see his missiles are both different designs as well. He also has this thruster back here, which is kind of a cool detail. As far as any kibble and bad bits or bad details, we can see it's pretty evident that this guy's a robot. You can see he has hands here, quite obvious. This, if you couldn't tell, was the head. From the sides, these really do look like legs. Not necessarily that it looks bad, but there really isn't all that much to disguise him. Also, we have the aspect that nothing really locks into place, so these can kind of just flop up and down. The legs can sway back and forth really easily, and it's hard to know what is the exact position you're supposed to get all of that stuff in, you know, how far you're supposed to push the legs in. As far as accessories, gimmicks, additional features, for one, we do have a spinning rotor. What you do here is just take this trigger with your finger and pull it back, and the rotor will give a quick spin. You can repeatedly spin it and get a constant motion, but the spin doesn't have a long life cycle. It is also kind of noisy. That might bother some people as well. He does also have some Minicon ports left over. Now, I did try this with a Minicon, and at least on my copy of the figure, these cannons do not flip out, which is something they can do in the original figure once a Minicon is connected. That isn't the case here. Obviously, the Minicon functions and the cannons have been replaced. However, the front of the vehicle does still retain 2 of the main functions from the original figure. For example, we can take any member of the Armada Destruction Minicon team. We'll have actually Armada Buzzsaw here, and what we can do here is connect him to the bottom of the helicopter by just pushing in right there. And it does actually work quite nicely with this color scheme, though the shades of yellow are slightly different. Nevertheless, I think it's pretty cool that they kept in this gimmick. Now, I do believe you're supposed to be able to spin the rotor, and this blade is supposed to spin as well due to some gears you have in here. It doesn't work on this figure. I found it also doesn't work on my Power Link Cyclonus. And what we can also do is open up his chest, and we can attach the original Cyclonus figure's Minicon crumple zone. What you do here is you see these square pegs that stick outward. Kind of just slide crumple zone's tank treads over top of those, and get them to click and, you know, kind of fidget with it till you get to fit into place. Nevertheless, though, he can be armed with 2 mini-cons in the front of the helicopter. And lastly, we'll take a look at his Cyberkey. So, give you guys a look at it, you can see, especially in the actual Decepticon symbol, as it is quite an old Cyberkey, was still pretty young when I had this figure. There you can see his unique code on the back, which I believe you could use in like Ask Vector Prime or something on the website. But anyways, let's look at the function. You can use this in either one of the cannons, and basically what you do is you plug the Cyberkey into the remolded piece, and it will fire the cannon quite nicely. It does have quite a kick to it. Here we have Buzzsaw compared to 2 other Cybertron Decepticons, Voyager class Crumple Zone and Deluxe class Run Amok. Here he is with 2 Combiner Wars figures, Voyager class Battlecore Optimus Prime and Deluxe class Alpha Bravo. And here he is with a random assortment of figures. From top to bottom, we have Armada Power Links Thrust, Thrilling 30 Deluxe class Waspinator, and Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe class Breakaway. With all of that aside, let's get into the transformation. First thing you want to do here is take these big yellow pieces, which will become the lower parts of his legs, and bend them at the knee. And when you're doing this, you also want to take this waist piece and bring it forward. And now you can bend the knees the rest of the way until you get that nice clicking sound. Then you want to flip these cannons back and they'll form his heel. And now you want to rotate the waist. Next thing you want to do is grab this big piece back here, just bring it downward with a strong motion. We can just now pop out the head. Now what you want to do is grip this wing and just fold the arms outward. And there you have Cybertron Buzzsaw in robot mode. So let's bring the figure in for a closer look. Give you guys a toe to head body scroll of the figure. There you can get a good look at his head sculpt, quite different than the original Cyclonus head. There's the front of the figure, the side, the other side, the back, the bottom, and there's the top. As far as the color scheme goes, the distribution of colors is a little bit different, but being that the modes look so similar, the colors are pretty much the same. Don't think there's a whole lot to point out. And as far as details go, he's pretty similar too. We do have some more noticeable differences here. As you can see, both arms are detailed quite differently on this part of the cannon. Both look quite different there. And also the Cyberkey ports are molded totally differently. Other than that, pretty much same high levels of detail as you got in vehicle mode. As far as mold changes, pretty much the same thing as in the alternate mode, except of course we can see the remolded head better now. As far as any kibble or bad bits, in my opinion this guy doesn't have too many, but there are some things that could be considered to be such. For one, we have this giant rotor back here, and really, no matter how you position this, it's always going to be sticking out somewhere. Personally, I think it adds to the aesthetic, but some people may find fault with that. We also have this big piece hanging back here, which some people might find it throws the look a little bit off. We also do have the fact that the Cyberkey ports here are just like added on to the cannons. Some people may find that looks a little bit clunky. I didn't really notice it myself till I went back and bought Power Link Cyclonus, but some people may find it to be a problem. As far as articulation goes, in the upper legs, you can have this back and forth motion. It is of course prohibited by this back fin here, so it can't really go back. But if you bring the leg forward, you do get some knee articulation too, which can bend all of the way backwards as well. No rotation at the knee or anything else at the upper leg. We do have rotation in the waist, but you're only going to get that if you bring the body forward, which can work in some poses, but I believe was done more so for the transformation. As far as the arms go, you can bring them back, you can bring them forward, and then they can fold up all of the way at the elbow, as is necessary for the transformation. And we don't really have any legitimate head articulation. His head can kind of bobble around and look down, but I would say pretty standard to maybe a little bit substandard Armada levels of articulation. That aside, I would say the figure has a pretty nice feel when you get him in hand. I don't really know to describe it, but I wouldn't say the overall plastic feels quite as nice as it does in, for example, figures such as Armada Wheeljack, Armada Starscream, or some of the nicer plastics we got in the Transformers Energon line. As you can see, if we flip these cannons out, the legs are pretty hollow in there, so overall plastic doesn't feel quite as nice. Nevertheless, he's a very durable figure. Stands really well. You know, we have a little bit of wear right here just because it's an old figure. Was doing videos back at the time I had him, so he suffered, I guess, a little bit of play wear. Personally, I don't think it's the nicest feel, but all in all, he's durable. As far as accessories, the Minicon functions, the Cyberkey functions are all exactly the same as they were in the helicopter mode. The only difference we have here is these leg cannons, which I believe I mentioned can't be activated by a Minicon. So basically what you do, as I did earlier, is you push them to the side, and then they can pop out. And I should mention these cannons were a different design on the original figure. Don't have any function in this mode outside of aesthetic though. Here we have Buzzsaw compared to a few other Cybertron Deluxe class figures. From left to right we have Thunderblast, Longrack, and Snarl. Here we have Buzzsaw with Combiner Wars Voyager class Silverbolt and Deluxe class Alpha Bravo. And here he is with sort of a random lineup: Revenge of the Fallen, Voyager class Stratosphere, Classics Voyager class Optimus Prime, and Thrilling 30 Deluxe class Waspinator. So final thoughts. My personal opinions on this guy I think are pretty positive. As was par for the course with Armada figures, he doesn't have a whole lot of articulation, but also, as was usual for the Armada figures, he looks like he's a very well crafted figure with an overall nice looking design that displays really well, a good aesthetic, a whole lot of details, and a whole bunch of really cool and fun gimmicks, most of which are kept in this version of the figure, though some have been removed due to the remolding. Speaking of the changes in this figure, the color scheme is a big one. Some people may find that the heavily detailed looks of the Armada figures really worked in a lot of cases because of the color schemes, and that this ultra fruity color scheme might not look quite as good. Personally, and it might be the nostalgia speaking, I think it looks really good on this figure. It's sort of like they didn't go halfway, they went totally on board with the fruity color scheme, and maybe that's why it kind of works out. I think most of the remolding on this guy looks pretty nice, and all of the changes, color, and mold make him fit in really nicely with the Cybertron figures. Now, as far as recommendations, before anything else, you should take into account this figure's limited amount of articulation, as if you're a newer fan or are used to a lot of the more recent figures, you know, those figures have a lot more articulation than this guy has. But if you can get past that, I think the mold's pretty good. Now, if you just want a version of this mold, I would look at Power Link Cyclonus, Armada Cyclonus, and this guy and kind of pick out which one you like most, depending on, you know, what you're looking for. If you don't like the looks of this guy and think it might be the color, I would definitely recommend looking at some of the other figures. If you just want a unique, fruity looking figure, one that you really won't find anywhere else, with a lot of fun gimmicks, I would say this guy's probably worth a purchase. Anyways, in regards to this figure, I think it all just comes down to personal taste. Hope this review was helpful if you're considering buying the figure, and I hope it was enjoyable if you're just into watching Transformers figure reviews. If you have any thoughts on the figure or the review itself, feel free to drop them off in the comments section below, along with suggestions for future figure reviews. Now, at the time of this recording, I do have a whole bunch of reviews already lined up. I will take your suggestion if I own the figure, just know that it will probably be put at the back of the list. Also, you can go to my channel for more throwback or recent Transformers figure reviews, along with commentary on various things related to Transformers, whether it be the films, the cartoons, the toy lines, just about anything Transformers related. You can also follow me on Twitter for more regular updates. Anyways, that's all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, and have a good one, guys. I'll see you soon.